Salatu wassalamu ala Rasulil Kareem. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Welcome to this IBA webinar series on understanding Islamic banking and finance. I will welcome all the participants to the webinar. Just before I start, please, I want to mention a few rules that please mute your mics, and if you have any query, you can, for question, you can enter in the chat box. So you can receive the questions and we will try to answer the question at the end of the session. We'll try to have the discussion and presentation for almost an hour. Then try to take the questions and answer session at the last, or probably 25 to 30 minutes. So in this manner, we will inshallah conclude our webinar by around 12:30, inshallah. So I'll start the session, and the request is you please mute your mic, and if you have any query, you can use the chat box to raise a question, or if you need any support or help from our team, please mention in the chat box, and our team at IBA will facilitate you in case there is any problem of joining or video or voice. So let's formally start the presentation. I'll start with a few verses from the Holy Quran. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. Sirata allazina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim waladdallin. Ameen. So welcome again on this webinar series of IBA CEIF Center for Excellence in Islamic Finance. Today we are also launching this webinar in collaboration with Meezan Bank. The purpose of this short webinar is to discuss what is Islamic finance, what is Islamic banking, what are the bases of Islamic banking and finance, what are the key differences between Islamic finance and conventional finance, how Islamic finance work, and then we'll also discuss some global facts and figures about Islamic finance. We will also discuss some Pakistani scenario where Islamic finance has reached in Pakistan, what is the current coverage of Islamic finance, and what are the benefits we'll also discuss. And inshallah, in the end, we will take the question and answers from the participants. This is the brief outline of the presentation. We'll discuss the concept of banking, Islamic banking. We'll give the global picture to you, key institutions that are operating in Islamic finance, Islamic banking today, how it is operating, in the way forward. Before I start my discussion about what Islamic banking is, one of the query or one of the question that normally come to me is, can banking be Islamic? Or is this a concept which is against Islam? And many people are confused about this, and they say banking is can't be Islamic because it is inherently an un-Islamic concept or un-Islamic way. But actually it depends on how you define the concept of banking. If you define, and unfortunately even today, many people define banking as a business of lending money and borrowing money on interest. If you limit the definition of banking to this lending and borrowing money on interest, then obviously the main question that comes to mind is that if this is a business of lending money on interest and borrowing money on interest, it can't be Islamic. But fortunately, this is not the accurate definition of a banking system. The banking system or the banking function can be better defined if we say that banks are entities that take surplus money from the economy, and they provide, they take the savings from the economy, from the individual, from the businesses, and then they provide the financing to the businesses that are in need of funds. So banks are financial intermediaries. and they are well defined in a process that they are financial intermediaries. And if we understand banks as financial intermediaries, then we are more clear that banking, the concept of banking or the concept of financial intermediation can be done in many ways. The prevalent way is just today is lending of money or borrowing of money on interest. But this is the definition of a subset of banking, which we call conventional banking or interest-based banking. But banking is a larger concept. It's a financial intermediary. It can work on lending and borrowing of money on interest, where then we will call it a conventional bank. And it can also work without lending and borrowing on interest, but on the basis of trade, on the basis of partnership, and on the basis of real economic transactions. So, so banking can be done with interest or without interest. And that's where the difference, or that's where the Islamic banking comes in. So if we say if we move forward, so Islamic banks are again financial intermediaries. They take surplus money from the economy and they provide financing to the deficit unit, but on the basis of partnership and trade. So they work like a trading house or an investment house. They take deposit from the customers on the basis of partnership on Musharka Mudarba, and then they provide financing to the customers based on the model of trade or partnership or rental contracts, or they provide financing under agency contracts. So they do the financial intermediation part, but the tools that they use are partnership, trading, rental contracts, and agency contracts. And all of these contracts, in order to become Islamic, they have to comply the Islamic commercial law or the Islamic Shariah rules. So they become compliant, because you can have a trading contract, you can have a partnership contract, or you can have an investment contract, which does not comply with the Islamic law. So you can say this form of banking is possible, but it is interest free, but it is still un-Islamic. So when we talk about Islamic finance or Islamic banking, yes, the concept of banking based on financial intermediation, but using trade-based modes, partnership-based modes, and transaction on the real assets and in real businesses within the bounds of Islamic commercial law, that that we know today as Islamic banking. And further, some people insist that we should call it riba-free banking only, and not Islamic banking. I would also like to clarify that riba-free is just one aspect of Islamic banking, or interest-free is just one aspect of Islamic banking, which means that you don't charge or take interest. But there are other prohibitions and other guidelines about given to us by Islamic Sharia, that you don't speculate, you don't do short sell, you don't do future sell, you don't do contracts which are exploiting the other party. So when we talk that we have to do banking on an Islamic way, it automatically means that we have to be riba free, but we have to comply the other rules of Islamic commercial law. So we have to be speculation free. We have to be, we don't do short sell. We don't invest in transactions which are artificial, and we focus on the real economic benefit, and ethical decision making become the part of our norm. So, so in this manner, the better definition or the better word is to call it Islamic banking, because even nowadays there are many countries where interest rate has become zero or even negative. So in some sense they're already riba free, but they're not Islamic, because to stimulate growth they have reduced the interest rate, or they have made it zero. But that does not mean that they have banned speculation or future sell or short sell or any other impermissible dealing in derivatives or artificial transactions. So when we talk about Islamic finance, Islamic banking, we mean that we are taking the we are applying the Islamic commercial law on the domain of banking through financial intermediation. Now, coming to the basis of Islamic finance and Islamic banking, one thing that is very important that we all should remember, that when we talk about Sharia or Islamic commerce, Islamic law, we have two spheres or two dimensions of it. One is our ibadat and devotional practices, which include the five pillars of Islam, Salat, Zakat, Ramzan, and Hajj. And then there are the muamalat, or the relationship between man to man. And that includes our political activities, social activities, and our economic activities as well. So banking and finance is part of our muamalat, and that is part of our economic activity. But why and how it becomes very important for all of us, because according to Islamic law, your economic activities and your source of income has to be pure and it has to be halal in order for your all ibadat to become acceptable. So if, for example, if I earn riba or sood or interest, or if I take bribe, or if I exploit someone and take his money illegally or unlawfully, then if I use that impermissible money to pay my zakat or to do hajj, that automatically becomes, according to Islamic law, invalid act of ibadat, or it will not reach the level of acceptance that is required for Muslims. So in order to, at a very personal level, if we want that our ibadat and our act of worships are acceptable and they are close, may take us closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we have to take care of our muamalat. So just like when we do our MBA or BBA, there are prerequisites. So in our ibadat, one of the prerequisites is that our financial dealings are accurate, and our financial dealings and our financial matters, especially the source of income, how we spend money, how we earn money, that is done in a permissible way. So our act of ibadat also become acceptable it will become acceptable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the question, again at the very personal level, that is from the hadith of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The hadith, it means the body which is nourished by non-pure source of source is bound for health. So this is again important for all of us, that whatever we earn, it has to be pure and permissible. On the day of judgment, again we were told that one will not move from his place unless he will ask. He answers the two queries: how he has earned the income and how he has spent his income. So this question of finance will be there even when we go away from this world, and we have to answer this. So, but the good thing is the question paper is known to us. The exam paper is told to us by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is now up to us to prepare the right answer and to avoid all impermissible means of income, whether it is riba or whether it is any other impermissible mean. One of the criteria for acceptance of prayer is also your halal source of income. So if our source of income is permissible, it is halal, it is pure, inshallah, that will help our prayers to be accepted in the eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now coming to the strategic objectives of Islamic finance, and what objective Islamic finance is bringing with it, with the system. When we talk about Islamic banking and finance, we are trying to promote an equitable system of distribution and circulation of wealth in the society, with the aim to eradicate poverty, hunger, exploitation, and develop a system that is natural, where the income is flowing rationally or equitably to all segments of society. So if you are a depositor in an Islamic bank, you share the profit and loss of the bank. And if you are a businessman, you also share your gain with the bank. So the society based on the profit sharing concept and distribution of wealth emerges. One of the objectives is to avoid all impermissible transactions, which is impermissible according to Islamic Shariah. And these transactions include riba or sood or interest, and all of its type. Any type of riba, whether it is commercial interest or usury or compound interest or any other form of riba, it is impermissible according to Islamic law. Speculation or gambling, that is also impermissible. Any contract which is based on gharar. Gharar is a terminology, Arabic terminology, which means high uncertainty that lead to dispute among two parties. So any transaction that is based on gharar is also impermissible. Few examples of gharar include short sale or a future sale, or selling something which is not in the ownership of the seller. So, or you sell something but you don't decide the selling price. So Islamic commercial law prohibits all such transactions where there's an uncertainty about the product or the price or the delivery. Then we have to avoid contracts hude fasida, which means that all those contracts which are not according to Islamic law, or that are exploiting one party and is taking the rights of one party and giving it to the other party, or unilaterally giving some rights to one party which is not which can be used to exploit the other party. For example, in a banking contract, sometimes we see in the conventional banks that you do a car leasing transaction or car financing transaction, and the banks put one condition that the bank has the right to revise the interest rate at its sole discretion. So this type of the contract of interest is impermissible, but this type of clause is also impermissible, where the bank is getting a unilateral right to revise the pricing of the transaction. Another objective is to promote real economic transaction and participate in promote participation based on asset-backed financing, asset-backed transaction. So Islamic finance is not going for artificial transactions like derivatives, swaps, options, but the focus is to do real economic transaction that create real wealth and that discourage speculation in the society. Fulfilling socially acceptable and halal need of the customers, and to promote project which gives socio-economic impact and benefit to the society. Again, Islamic finance is always looking for to fulfill and help the customers and finance the customers for those projects which are beneficial for the society, and that are not harmful as a whole to the society, or which are not ethical in its nature. So that's why many Islamic banks don't finance any alcohol making company, or a casino, or even a tobacco company, or a weapon manufacturer, so because to avoid promotion of any harm to the society. One of the objective again for Islamic finance, especially in the context of Pakistan, is to promote financial inclusion and provide access to finance for all segments of the society on fair basis. Because especially in Pakistan, because it's a 98% Muslim majority country, and the people are generally averse to riba and sood. So if you say to someone in the market that kya aap sood khate ho, are you a interest eater or a consumer, so he will react very negatively. And many of a large segment of the Pakistani society is still not doing banking because of the involvement of riba and interest in the banking system. And one of the again important goal, but not the least, but this is that we have to ensure Sharia compliance in all of our dealings and all of our transactions. So whenever you do Islamic banking transaction or Islamic finance transaction at the personal level or at the bank level, which is complying to Islamic commercial law, you have to ensure Sharia compliance in every time. Now, how we know and where we take guidance about what the rules of Islamic finance. As a Muslim, we know, alhamdulillah, that our main source of guidance is Quran, the holy book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has mentioned at least 4 times about the concept of riba. There are mentions about in Surah Rum, Surah Al Imran, Surah Nisa, and a detailed mention about the topic of riba and sood or interest in Surah Baqarah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shall rise up before Allah like the man whom Shaitan has demented by his touch. For they claim that trading is like usury. So those who take or consume riba, they are misguided by the Shaitan, and they claim something very strange, and that Quran has mentioned. And Quran says, they say, قَالُوا إِنَّمَا الْبَيُّ مِثْلُ riba. They say that trade is like interest. And why they say? Because they're misguided by Shaitan, and they say because you make money in trade and we make money by giving riba-based loan. So they are same because the outcome is same. You are making money in both manners. But this is the the error that people they have committed, and they didn't understand the prohibition. But and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, in the next word, in the next part of the word, and Allah has permitted trade and forbidden riba. So after listing the argument of those who claim or those who take riba that the outcome is same, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given his decision that Allah has permitted trade and has forbidden riba. So for us, this decision is enough, although there are a lot of wisdom behind it. I would request if anyone can mute their mic. So what we were saying that although they were saying that those who are doing those who eat riba or those who are involved in riba, the claim was that because we are making money both ways, so it is same. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guided us in the Quran and says in the eyes of Allah, riba is impermissible and its alternative sale is permissible. And when we look at both of these two transactions, they're quite different. In a sale transaction, you actually involve in an economic transaction. You take risk of an asset, you buy a real asset, you sell a real asset, and you make money on by taking risk. But in case of loan, you just lend money, and without taking any risk of any real economic activity, you make money. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made it clear, and this gives guidelines or this clarity that Allah has forbidden riba and has permitted trade and forbidden riba is so known to even common men on the street, that if you go and ask a common man on the street, what do you think, is riba, is sood halal? And the immediate answer you will get, no, riba and sood is haram. Because this is a very clear message, and alhamdulillah, this message is still is accepted and known by everyone, especially in the Muslim world, that they are very clear on this. But unfortunately, after being clear on the prohibition of riba or sood, unfortunately, many of us even get involved in the riba-based transaction, and the goal is, inshallah, to to educate people so they can avoid riba-based transaction. And then the Quran goes on says, those who got an advice or a warning from their Rabb or their Lord and mend their way, they may keep what they have earned, and their faith is in the hand of Allah. But those who pay no heed shall be among the people of fire and shall remain in it forever. So those who deny this provision of Quran, the Quran is saying that they are the people of fire and they will remain in it. So there is clear-cut clarity about riba, that Allah has provided a sale or bay as an alternative for coming out of riba-based system or riba-based transactions, and then there's a warning as well. If you don't listen, then there's a possible punishment as well. Then after two ayat, the Quran says again, it is especially addressing to those who believe. Oh, you who believe, fear Allah and give up your demand or your demand of interest or your matter of interest if you indeed are a believer. So ya ayyuhallazina amanu ittaqullaha wa dhuru ma baqiya min ar-riba in kuntum mu'minin. So if you are a believer, then you have to do something. And what you have to do, what is a requirement to us from Quran, that give up all the matters of riba. Whether you take riba, whether you take interest, whether you give interest, whether you support interest-based system, you have to move away from riba and riba-based transaction and riba-based system. And if you do not, then there is another serious warning in the Quran, and the Quran says, فَإِن لَمْ تَفْعَلُوا فَأَذَنُوا بِحَرْبٍ مِّنَ اللَّهِ وَرَسُولِهِ. So if you do not, then there is a declaration of war with Allah and His Messenger. So the involvement in riba is not an easy thing. It has serious consequences. And Allah and His Messenger has declared a war on those who are involved in riba, or who are promoting riba, or who are taking riba or sood or interest. And then this ayat goes on and says, but if you turn back, you shall have your principal, deal not unjustly, and you shall not be dealt unjustly. So if you repent, you can take your principal back. You should not be unjust with anyone, and no one should be unjust to you. Now, if we move on, there are quite a lot of ahadith of the Prophet ﷺ about the concept of riba and about the concept of sood. There are almost 40 ahadith narrated in the different books of hadith, and I have selected just one or two here. It was narrated by the Jabir bin Abdullah radiallahu ta'ala anhu. The Prophet ﷺ has cursed the receiver and payer of interest, the one who records it, and the one who witnessed the transaction, and said they are all alike in this guilt. And it is related by Musnad Imam Ahmad and by Muslim and by Tirmidhi. So normally when I teach my MBA students and BBA students and finance students, I normally mention that, look, this is the hadith that is for us. We are told by the Prophet ﷺ that and you have to have, if anyone is part of the riba supply chain, or he's giving riba or interest, or he's paying interest, he's receiving interest, or he's paying interest, or he's just recording the transaction and facilitating the transaction of interest, just like finance manager or finance executive or finance director or maybe a chartered accountant, or he's witnessing the transaction, and these transactions are happening in front of him, and he's witnessing them, and he's promoting them, and he's allowing them, then guilt or same crime of riba. And and then that's a bad news, that if you have to do anything with riba, then this will be a part of the problem, and inshallah we should try to avoid it. And there are other many ahadiths about riba. When at the night of Mi'raj, when the Prophet ﷺ went to the heavens, he saw people who were being punished, and when he asked the Jibreel why these people are in this manner, and the Jibreel alayhi salam replied that they are the people who take riba in your ummah. So there are serious consequences, and riba is prohibited for Muslims in very clear terms. And interestingly, the prohibition of riba is just not for Muslims. In other religions, in Christianity, in Judaism, and other religions, we have seen the prohibition of riba still exists. There's the prohibition of riba, although some of the followers don't follow that prohibition, but this prohibition, we find it almost a universal prohibition of riba or interest. Now, what is riba? How we define riba? How we say how we can define this concept of riba or sood? It is narrated by Ali Radiallahu Ta'ala, and I will just translate it, that any debt that pulls any kind of gain is riba. Which means that if you are giving a loan to someone, I say I have given 100,000 rupee loan to my friend, and I ask them that when you pay back, you pay me extra 10,000 rupees. That excess amount on a loan is considered as sood, as riba, as usury, as interest, and that is clearly prohibited in Islam. Actually, Islam does not consider loan as a commercial contract. Loan is a contract for helping others, but you cannot make it a commercial contract. You cannot run a business of lending money on interest. So yes, lending money is acceptable, but any excess that you charge in the name of for your waiting on your loan, whether you call it service charge, whether you call it profit, whether you call it markup, but if it is excess on a loan, then that is classified in the definition of riba, However, if you are making money by selling something, for example, you have a shop and you are selling a mobile phone, you bought it for 10,000 and you're selling it for 11,000, that excess of 1,000 rupees is not riba, because that is not coming out of a loan transaction, that is coming out of a sale transaction. So we should be very clear that riba or interest or usury or sood is an excess amount that is taken on a loan transaction. And this excess amount can be in the form of rupee. For example, I ask my friend to pay me 10,000 when you pay back after 1 year. Or I ask my friend that, okay, you don't pay me extra, because if you pay me extra, people will say that I am a riba earner or I am a sood khor. So don't pay me extra, but just provide me a service of pick and drop from my home to office every day as a compensation for that I have given you loan. That excess that excess amount or that service is also classified as riba. So any benefit that is you are drawing because of a loan or making it conditional towards the loan is considered in the definition of riba. And there are hadiths of the Prophet ﷺ that if you give loan to someone, don't accept a gift from him, or don't sit on his maybe on his vehicle or on his means of transport, if you're not accustomed to do it before the contract of loan. So this is just to avoid the even that people can unknowingly enter into the domain of riba. Now coming forward, there are few, these I have listed few elements which are not permissible in Islamic financial system or Islamic commercial law. Riba is the top, that is usury or interest. Then it is not allowed to enter into future sale transactions or forward sale transactions. You're not allowed to enter into gambling based transactions. You're not allowed to enter into unjust and unfair contracts. You're not allowed to promote, finance unlawful or unethical trade practices. You are not allowed to do speculative trading of money. You're not allowed to do gambling. You should avoid uncertainty in transactions that lead to dispute. So in a way, Islam wants, our Islamic financial system wants a very clear-cut relationship between customers, between two parties, which avoid all type of exploitation, greed, discourages greed, and focus that one should enter into real transactions, and then you can make money, because that real transaction will be beneficial for the society as well as to those who are entering into the transaction. So what Islamic banking is? There's another definition I've added. Islamic banking is a form of financial intermediation based on the Islamic concepts or Islamic modes of partnership, sale, rent, and free from riba or interest, messer, uncertainty, and other prohibited elements in Sharia. Some people ask me that how they still feel that Islamic banks and conventional banks are doing same thing. So I have added this slide just to highlight the very quick macro level that there are two different animals, there are two different areas. If you are an Islamic bank, you cannot deal in any interest-based transaction. You cannot enter into any interest-based contract. You cannot sign a contract of interest taking or interest giving. You cannot finance unethical businesses like casinos, alcohol shops, wine shops, tobacco. You cannot invest in the treasury bills or interest-based bonds or Pakistan investment bond issued by the government of Pakistan, because they are on interest. You cannot invest in derivatives, swaps, options. You cannot do future sales, short sell in the markets, in the stock markets, and then a lot of things that you can't do. And some of my colleagues who are in the conventional system, when they say you can't do all of this, then they're really surprised and they say, then what remains? Because this is what we do in banking. So I tell them that this is what you do in conventional form of banking, but there are green areas or permissible areas as well. So we can do sale transactions. You can buy raw material, you can sell raw material, you can invest in businesses, and you can do partnership with businesses. You can provide properties, car, machineries on rent. You can take the risk and you can provide them on rent. You can provide different agency services to your client. So there are permissible areas and there are impermissible areas. And if you understand this slide, you can clearly see that Islamic banks, the domain and of operation of Islamic banks are quite different, and there are quite restrictions on Islamic banks. So they avoid a lot of things which are not permissible for Muslims. Now let's take this difference on the next level. When we discuss Islamic finance and Islamic banking, I normally highlight three differences: the conceptual difference, the business difference, and the product level difference. So if we come to the conceptual level, Islamic banks are not money lending institutions. As I mentioned earlier, we are not institutions that lend money on interest or borrow money on interest. So money lending is not our main business. We are, as per our license, as per our governing law, as per our framework, it is illegal for Islamic banks to deal in any interest-based transactions or provide financing for any non-permissible goods or industries. So Islamic banks, because of the Sharia reason, as well as because of the regulatory and legal reason, they are not allowed to deal in interest with anybody. Islamic bank is not allowed to deal with any other conventional bank on the basis of interest. They cannot deal with even State Bank of Pakistan on interest basis, or they cannot deal with any even foreign entity like IMF, World Bank on the basis of interest, because any interest-based contract is illegal and un-Islamic for Islamic banks. Then our business model is quite different, and the governing framework for Islamic banks are quite different. Islamic banks actively participate in trade and production process for the and they are like supply chain partner. I'm a textile owner. I buy cloth from the market or yarn from the market and then make finished goods. So Islamic bank will probably say, okay, we will supply you the yarn and we will supply you the cloth and the raw material, buy it from us, and we will get it from your supplier. So they become your supply chain partner. So typical relationship of Islamic banks and their customer is either Islamic bank is a supplier of raw material to them, or Islamic banks sometimes buy the finished product and sell it in the market. For example, if you are a football manufacturer working from Shal Court, so you make footballs and sports goods, Islamic bank will come to you and say, if you want financing, Islamic bank can say, okay, sell me 10,000 footballs and I will pay you the price today. So you make the footballs, you sell it to Islamic bank person will come, take the delivery, and now they can sell it directly in the market, or they can use just your own customers. So they can sell those assets to your original customers, original buyers. So they become your supply chain. The customer or the financing customer becomes the supplier of Islamic banks. Then Islamic banks also invest in companies on partnership basis on profit and loss. We call it musharka. So musharka based transactions are done. Then Islamic bank also do rental based transactions. So whatever we do, we actually become quite involved in the business activity, and our business model is quite different. Governing framework for Islamic banks is also different. In terms of a typical bank, you can say there's a board of directors and that's it. And then the management working under that. In Islamic bank, the regulation on Pakistan says that they are required to have two boards. One is the board of directors, again the shareholder board, and then the other board is the members of the Sharia board or the Sharia scholars who are part of the Islamic bank board, and they guide Islamic bank on different matters. All the products are approved by the Sharia board, all the contracts are approved by the Sharia board, and the Sharia board provide continuous guideline to Islamic banks to operate in a Sharia compliant manner. So, and one of the key important thing as per the State Bank regulation in Pakistan, the Sharia board is given an extra power on the board of directors. So for example, if the board of directors decides something, uh, for example, they decide to launch say some product, and the Sharia board feels that this is not Islamic, then Sharia board can veto the decision of the board, and it can say that, look, this is not possible, so you can't launch it. So Sharia board has in the matter of Sharia has a overriding authority over the board of directors, and the decision of Sharia board is also bound. It is binding decision on the board of directors as well as on the management. So this special power given to the Sharia board is a unique feature of Islamic Bank, because that will help Islamic banks to ensure that the Sharia compliance remains supreme, and no Islamic bank, just in the pursuit of short-term gains, they violate the principle of Sharia. So a unique where you have two boards or dual board structure for oversight. One is the management or the shareholder board, and the other is the Sharia board. As I mentioned, that Islamic banks are supply chain partners, they are trade partners. So when you look at a supply chain partner, you normally find that they have inventories. A trader has inventories, and this is how Islamic banks have inventories. I have took the balance sheet of Meezan Bank from 2017 and 2016. So there's a statement called Statement of Inventory, which shows the actual goods held by Meezan Bank on December 2017, which are around 21 billion. In 2016, it was around 15 billion. And I just saw the latest figure of 2019. It was over 30 billion rupees. Actual inventory, actual goods are held by bank because they are one of the largest trading company of Pakistan. So Islamic banks are trading companies. They are tajir, they are traders, they are investors, and trade is the Sharia permissible way of banking. Trade and investment is the permissible way according to Islam for doing banking, and lending of money is the impermissible way of doing banking according to Islam. So if you look at the balance sheet of Meezan, you find agriculture products, chemical products, construction items, textile goods, retail goods, other items. So a lot of real goods are owned by the bank because they are supplier of one of the largest supplier probably in Pakistan of raw material to the corporate sector. And they're one of the largest buyer because they buy goods from the corporate sector and the companies and businesses, and then they sell it in the market, or they get these goods to be exported. So this is this shows a clear distinction of how Islamic banks are differently working from conventional banks. Then there are probably in case of again Meezan, they have one of the larger rent-a-car fleet. Probably 10,000 cars they have given on rent. They are one of the larger owner of real estate, which is given on rent to the customer. So that's how, by investing in the real transaction, by giving them on rent, or by selling and buying of real assets, Islamic banks provide financing to their customers. Now, the third difference difference you will find is about the product level implementation of different Islamic banking products. Usually, Islamic banking products are asset-backed. As I mentioned, they involve trading and renting of assets and participation and profit and loss. Implementation does not mean just changing the name of interest to profit. It actually involves that you have to start with the right intention. There's a hadith in Sahih Bukhari which says, "Innamal a'malu binniyat," that you will get your work depends upon your intention. You have to have the right intention to avoid all riba and impermissible transaction. You have to follow the correct sequence of steps and timings. In Islamic transaction, Islamic financing transaction, timings are very important. Just like when we are almost all of us are observing our roza, and so we are fasting. So we fast from a particular time to a particular time. So this timing compliance is important. If we eat something after Fajr, or if we eat something before Maghrib, our fast becomes void. Similarly, such SOPs are also there when we do trade transactions. For each financing transaction, there are certain SOPs, and there are certain timing you are selling something, clarity that yes, I have done a transaction in a Sharia compliant manner. Without understanding of these differences, people normally conclude, or they erroneously conclude that they think conventional transaction and Islamic transaction are same, which is not the case. Quick overview of where Islamic banking today is. If there are around 1,300 institutions operating worldwide in Islamic finance, the total industry size, again, there are estimates between 2.2 trillion to 2.8 trillion. By 2020, it was in US dollars. Again, the number of customers estimated over 150 million. We have around 250, more than 250 Sharia compliant mutual funds operating in different parts of the world. Over 7,000 Islamic bonds or sukuk have been issued to date. So this is a very new, this is also a market that is emerging in Islamic finance, that instead of conventional bonds or interest-based bonds, in Islamic finance, you have alternative instruments called sukuk. Just Malaysia has issued over 5,000 in the last 20-25 years. So there are Islamic insurance companies now in the market. We have Islamic banks, we have Islamic insurance companies. There are standard setting bodies in Islamic finance. One of them is called AOFI. This is the most respected body of Islamic finance, and they set standards for Islamic banking transactions. And all Islamic banks worldwide try to comply to the IOFI standards. So the customers have the confidence about them that they are really Islamic. There are different stock markets have established different Islamic indices, like Dow Jones have established their Islamic index, FTSE, PSX in Pakistan Stock Exchange, KMI index is there, all share Islamic index is there. Currently, London, Bahrain, Malaysia, UAE, they all want their countries to become hub of Islamic finance. So there's a fight among the different countries that which country will lead the growth or success story of Islamic finance. And Pakistan can also become a leader in Islamic finance if we put our efforts correctly, and if we join our energies and are convinced that Islamic finance is better for country. More than 120 countries are now cooperating or providing are having Islamic financial or Islamic banking institutions. There are a lot of Muslim countries, but now there are more non-Muslim countries where Islamic finance is being practiced, or they are trying to promote Islamic finance. This was again an interesting chart that I would like to show, that there are two countries that claim that they have already reached 100% in terms of Islamic finance, Iran and Sudan. And very lately, Libya has also, we have heard about Libya, that they have also shifted from conventional to Islamic. So they are now claiming they are 100% Islamic. But other countries like Brunei and Saudi Arabia, they are around 50 to 60%. And then, so one thing is clear, that if you want, even in today's world, a system which is 100% based on Islamic principle, that is quite possible. And again, the onus is on us, that are we willing to accept the Islamic teachings about finance, and are we willing to give up riba and sood and our interest-based matter or not? The choice is us. No one is stopping us actually. It is now recognized by World Bank, IMF, Basel Committee, Asian Development Bank. And there's an interesting story about Asian Development Bank. I was approached by Asian Development Bank that they want to promote Islamic finance in Pakistan, and they have, and there are few other countries, and their board has approved a $2 million budget for 6 countries or 5 countries where they want to promote Islamic finance and they want to teach Islamic loans or Islamic financing based transaction. And one of the reasons that I understand why they're pushing Islamic finance, because Islamic finance transactions are more transparent. They involve actual assets. So for example, when Asian Development Bank gives loan of $100 million, they will just give money. But if they do a Islamic real dam and they will get money in the dam project, so that actual project comes up on the surface of earth and there's an actual utilization tag to the use of funds. So but unfortunately some of us don't like this type of monitoring and transparency, so we're avoiding taking financing from even IMF, World Bank or ADB on Sharia principles. And the World Bank has its global center of Islamic finance operating in Turkey. IMF has its own specialist of Islamic finance. So it's not that they don't want, they are not, they're against Islamic finance. They have now accepted Islamic finance as an alternative, mechanism. So let's move forward. This was one of the report. I'll just quickly make one point. When during the financial crisis of 2008, the world economy was going down, but in the Islamic world or Islamic finance world, the business was as usual. We have not seen a negative impact on Islamic finance asset directly, but actually we have seen in some markets that because of the financial crisis, the confidence of people actually increased on Islamic banks, and they shifted their money and deposit towards Islamic banks. There are 4 global bodies of Islamic finance which are quite popular. The most popular one is AOFI, and this is the leading body of Islamic finance that sets Sharia standards and accounting standards and ethical standards. Then we have Islamic Financial Services Boards, which guides central banks across the world, across the Islamic world, to how to develop regulation for Islamic banks in their own countries. Then we have Islamic rating agencies, we have General Council for Islamic banks. So a lot of bodies are there in Islamic finance which are providing infrastructure support or standard setting support to Islamic finance. And now this shows the global acceptability and of this phenomena, that now it's not something niche market, it's not something which people don't know. It is now something which is largely accepted. I went to a Bank of England on a study, on a trip where I want to understand we're working on Islamic law for Pakistan. So even in Bank of England, there was an Islamic finance department. And when we asked to them why you have started Islamic finance in England, because Bank of England is like mother of conventional banking. So they say, look, we have Muslim population in our country, and it's our duty of the government to provide those Muslim people, Muslim citizens of UK, a financial system which is according to their belief. So I was quite surprised that they took this pain that for their British Muslim citizens, they understand that they don't want riba-based or interest-based banking. So they started Islamic banking for their Muslim citizens, so they get equal access. But unfortunately, in Pakistan, we are 98% Muslims, but the government is not thinking in this direction, that we should provide 100% Islamic finance solution to the Muslim country and Muslim population. But let's hope things will change and improve. So IOFI was established in 1990, and they provide Sharia. They have developed Sharia standards, accounting standards, and auditing standards, and they have done a lot of work. And in Pakistan, the State Bank of Pakistan has almost adopted 14 standards or 13 standards of IOFI, as part of the prudential regulation of Pakistan. So if you are in Pakistan, you're working in a bank, you must comply those regulations of IOP as a law for doing banking in Pakistan. IOP has a credibility because of its very strong Sharia board, and that is headed by Mufti Taqi Usmani, one of the most influential person in the Islamic world, and is considered as the authority for Islamic finance. And there are other prominent scholars who know the fiqh side, who know the model financial system, who know the different aspects of the financial system, the regulations, the legal aspects. And when they sit together, they develop standards of Islamic finance, so the Islamic banks and the customers can follow those standards, and they are very rest assured that they are doing a Sharia compliant transaction. So this is a blessing for all of us, for all of Muslims and all of us who are living today, that we have such eminent scholars and such guidance available to us in the form of IOP Sharia standard. If we want to switch to Islamic banking, we want to practice Islamic banking, we don't need to do research from day one. These scholars are working for last 30-40 years, and they have a combined experience of hundreds of years, and they are providing us guidelines. So if we follow these qualified and knowledgeable scholars, we are inshallah following this right path, and we are on the safe path. Other fiqh bodies like Islamic Fiqh Academy, Jeddah and Nadwatul Barakah has also declared all form of conventional banking interest and as riba and prohibited, and they have various resolutions. Even Supreme Court of Pakistan has also prohibited that conventional system in Pakistan, or the banking system which is based on a conventional model, is un-Islamic and against the principles of Quran and Sunnah. Even when Pakistan was, the Central Bank of Pakistan was inaugurated, Qaid Azam Rahmatullah Alayh also mentioned in his opening, present this world an economic system based on the true Islamic concept of equality of manhood and social justice. And he went on saying that the Western system has failed and it will not work for us. So he has the foresight from day one that if you follow the Western capitalist or interest-based system, it will be a disaster for you. And unfortunately, we did not listen to the Qaid at that time, and we designed our banking system, our financial system on the impermissible concept of riba, and unfortunately, as a result, we are also suffering because of the consequence. The Constitution of Pakistan clearly says the state is responsible to eliminate riba as soon as possible. So it is the responsibility of the state as well. The Constitution of Pakistan also says no law of Pakistan can be made against the principles of Quran and Sunnah. But unfortunately, our banking system, as we speak, is still largely against the Constitution, against the law, against the spirit of Constitution, and against the principle of Quran and Sunnah. One of the interesting study which was done by State Bank of Pakistan and which asked the people who are doing banking, do you consider riba haram or prohibited? 95% of them almost say yes, they consider riba as haram. And a very large majority, probably 89-90% says just conventional banking is riba. And the 75% was very willing to switch to Islamic banks if they have the option available. And when the State Bank asked, or the survey asked those people who are not doing banking at all, so why they are not doing banking, why they are not part of the banking system, around 90% or more says because of riba, because of sood, we don't trust on an interest-based system, so we don't want to do banking on an interest-based principle. Even the banking law of Pakistan was very clear. It does not, it says, and it allows central bank to stop any interest-based borrowing in the economy or in the banking sector. It also allows, it says that deposit taking by any bank, whether Islamic or conventional, whatever the name is, they are not allowed to take deposit on interest basis. Either they can take deposit on profit and loss basis, or it has to be interest free. But unfortunately, this banking law of Pakistan is also being not followed by the conventional banks, and they are taking deposit on interest. So I can say in Pakistan that our banking segment is also conventional banking segment is just violating the Quranic principles as well as the Constitution of Pakistan and the Banking Company Ordinance by taking deposit on riba or interest. And one interesting clause that was mentioned in this Banking Company Ordinance, that if you receive any deposit on profit and loss basis, you are not allowed to invest this deposit on riba basis or interest basis with any company. So this is again very interesting, and I was actually very surprised when I see that, and I say how the banking industry is violating. Whether it is taken by any bank and a conventional bank, whether if you are just even calling it incorrectly as a PLS, you are not allowed to use that deposit to lend interest based to any company or to invest in T-bills or PIBs of the government of Pakistan, which are interest based instruments. So it is an interesting study and maybe area of work, that how we are violating the law of land, and still and I think should be we should not only follow the Quranic principle but also the law of land. However, there are good news as well. In Pakistan currently, the status of the Islamic banking has grown from 0 to 16.5% over the last 18 years. Now we have a separate Islamic banking department at the State Bank. We have a separate Shariah committee at the State Bank of Pakistan. We have a legal framework in place where you have Islamic banks, Islamic conventional banks can have Islamic subsidiaries, like MCB has a subsidiary called MCB Islamic Bank. We have a different concept of standalone branches of conventional bank who are doing Islamic business. You can convert a conventional bank to an Islamic bank, just like Faisal Bank is in process. Inshallah, we hope they will convert soon from an interest-based bank to an Islamic bank. Currently, that you promote Islamic banking, you give people the choice, and then inshallah we will someday switch over to Islamic. We have comprehensive regulatory framework for Islamic banking already in place. There's a comprehensive Sharia governance framework for Islamic banks, pool management and profit distribution guidelines. Prudential regulations have their own Islamic versions in some cases. IOF standards have been adopted by the State Bank of Pakistan. We have Sharia compliant inspections happening by State Bank of Pakistan. According to the strategic plan for State Bank, they want to take Islamic banking to 25% by 2023. And we come to know that the government is also actually is now considering promoting Islamic finance. And one of the fact that we were told by someone that the Prime Minister is desiring that we should be 30%. But there are 5 Islamic banks currently, full-fledged Islamic banks. Almost 17 conventional banks have started Islamic banking. So you can say is accepted by everyone. Even conventional banks who are practicing interest-based banking, if you go there and you say, I want to do Islamic banking, they will say, okay, sir, this is the Islamic banking branch is on the other side of the road, or you can go that branch. And they are, if you want riba free, you want Islamic, you can have a product from our Islamic branch. So this fact that Islamic banking is real, it is different, it has different requirement, is now accepted by even conventional banks. And that's why the conventional banks are now aggressively opening Islamic branches. And some of them have converted to Islamic, some of the portfolios. There are two, 3 banks, major banks like Habib Bank of Pakistan, Standard Chartered Bank. They have decided that they will not offer mortgages product under any housing finance under interest-based mechanism. They will only offer these products under Sharia compliant mechanism. So again, they have realized that the market want Islamic product, and they have now Islamic product available. So why confuse the market and just do, and that is acceptable to everyone. In terms of talent development, the government is also pushing. We have now 3 centers of excellence established by support of State Bank in the last government. IBA Center for Excellence is one center of IM Sciences Peshawar has established. And now after this, we have seen many universities now establishing their Department of Islamic Banking or Islamic Finance or the Center for Islamic Finance. Because which is one thing very critical, we need people who are trained in Islamic finance, trained in Islamic banking, who understand Islamic banking. So when they go in the market, in the banking sector, in the finance sector, in the regulation sector, in the government sector, or in the corporate sector. They understand what Islamic finance is, and they are able to use the modes of Islamic finance in a better manner. This chart shows the growth of Islamic finance. You can see from 2013 to 2019, the asset growth was mashallah very good. And as we speak, we are in this, after December, the total assets is over 3 trillion in terms of assets for Islamic finance. The share of banking was in June 14.4, sorry, the share of asset was around 15% now. The deposit has again reached around 3 trillion as of December. It was 2.4 trillion in June. The industry share as we speak today is 16.4%. So from 0 to 16.4%, the quite a journey has been covered by Islamic banks. It's still not satisfactory because it's a Muslim country. We are, but if the level playing field and the support is provided, this figures can be quickly doubled in maybe 3 years time, and you can just reach 60, 30%, 50% in 3 to 5 years if the support is there, because the demand is there, the concept is real, and now we know what a lot of research has been done. So now the challenge is not how to do Islamic banking. Then the question is now when to do Islamic banking, and do you really want to do Islamic banking? Because now the solution, lot of solutions are already there, and if a company want to convert to Islamic finance, it is possible. If an individual want to convert to Islamic finance, it is possible. Even Federal Board of Revenue, FBR, has given a 2% tax rebate for all those listed companies in the manufacturing sector that completely cut off their conventional banking business. So if they are 100% Islamic in terms of financing and in terms of their deposit, they will get a 2% tax break along with some other criteria of regular dividend payment. So you know, now FBR also recognized, the stock market recognized, the listed companies can operate on 100% Islamic basis. They don't need conventional banking support at all, and because the market is now developed, has reached this level. We have around 3,000 Islamic banking branches, 1,350 windows, so almost 4,500 touch points for where you can do Islamic banking. The product mix of Islamic banking is also quite, you know, is healthy. In Pakistan, we see a lot of different products of Islamic banking. You don't see interest-based loan here. You will see Murabaha, which is like a sale on cost plus profit basis, Ijara, which is a rental contract, partnership contract based on Musharka. Diminishing Musharka is a joint of sale where you buy goods, agriculture products largely manufactured, and then the goods are delivered to Islamic bank. So you can see a healthy mix of Islamic banking modes have developed over time. Alhamdulillah, in a better manner. The forecast of 2020, we are forecasting by 2023, there will be around 5,000 Islamic banking branches, and the new employment generated by Islamic banks and the new hiring of the graduates will be around 20,000 in next 3 to 4 years. So this is something good news, that jobs are being created. People who have Islamic banking skills, they can come in the Islamic banking domain. And similarly, these skills will be in demand in the corporate sector, because now a lot of corporates are shifting to Islamic finance. They are converting sukuks, and they need expertise of Islamic finance. Similarly, Islamic mutual funds are looking for expertise. Takaful companies are looking for expertise. Regulators are looking for Islamic finance experts. Regulators like Pakistan Stock Exchange. So they are now have their units for Islamic finance, and they are working on it. Deposit forecast is probably it will exceed 4 trillion rupees by 2023, and so we are expecting a very healthy growth in Islamic deposits as well. The share forecast is somewhat mixed. We are expecting 20 1% by 2023, but this can be easily enhanced if we have the right focus and the right products, right support available from the industry. So you can see the growth graph going up if we have the right support. The government of Pakistan has taken some initiatives in Islamic finance, and a Sukuk program has been issued by government of Pakistan. This is to raise Sharia compliant financing for the government operations. So up till now, there's one Sukuk missing. There are 20 Sukuk have been issued till now. Over 1 trillion rupees, 1,000 billion rupees worth of Sukuk have been issued. So now government also understand that there's an Islamic way of getting public finance. The need is that, yes, you have to use this more and more, so you can convert the government debt mix from conventional to Islamic. Unfortunately, as we speak today, probably less than 2% of government borrowing is under Islamic mode. If we increase this, and there was a resolution in the Senate of Pakistan which demanded the government of Pakistan that at least 30% of the this is the resolution, that 30% of the government borrowing should be at least Islamic to start with. So if this happens, and this happens, that we can see a tremendous growth in Islamic finance and Islamic finance industry. Some of the development, recent development for Islamic finance, I mentioned few of them. The target is to take Islamic banking to 25%. We have now Sharia boards at different banks, at State Bank of Pakistan as well as at SEVP. We have Sharia counters index in the stock exchange, Pakistan Stock Exchange, KMI 30 index, and all share index. There's also work being done to develop a Islamic trading index in the Pakistan Stock Exchange. Federal budget of 2017 and 18 has provided tax neutrality to Islamic banking modes. Different Islamic products are now giving same tax treatment as conventional banking. They're not be taxed extra because they are being Islamic. So you don't need to pay a cost of being Muslim in Pakistan. Government of Pakistan has issued 200 billion rupees sukuk, energy sukuk, to help the circular debt. One of the other sukuk will be coming, 100 billion will be coming. So Islamic finance is also providing solution where even conventional banks were not willing to provide financing to the government. FBR has allowed tax reduction of 2% tax rate to listed companies who cut off completely from conventional banks, and they completely switched their business to Islamic banks. Investment in sukuk have been given some tax exemption to the individuals. So this is in the last words on the presentation. This is an acceptable phenomenon. It's a viable alternative. It has a very strong foundation to it. It's a better way of doing banking. It is in line with the objective of Islamic Sharia, Islamic economics. Islamic banking products are currently that are being developed are helping the customers to convert. And there are more innovation is needed to further enhance the suite of Islamic banking products. We need support, coordination from all circles to promote Islamic finance. So I'll stop here, and I will now take a look at the questions and see if and you can type your questions there as well. So let me go through the list of questions, and I'll start try to answer one by one till the time permits. You will get the soft copy of this presentation through IBA CEIF Facebook, or we will try to send it on your email if you have given the email contact to us. There was a question about giving riba. Yes, the hadith mentioned that taking riba is also crime and giving riba is also crime, because involving in a riba-based transaction and promoting riba-based transaction is not acceptable according to Islamic law. The question was, अगर कोई इंसान मजबूरी में सूद दे रहा है तो उसका भी हुक्म वैसे ही है. देखें, the सूद का देना तो हराम ही रहेगा और गुनाह ही है, इंसान अगर किसी ऐसी मजबूरी में पड़ गया है और तो ही हैज उसको रिपेंट करना है, उसको अपने हर वक्त तौबा करनी है अपने इस अमल पे, और अपने आप को पूरी कोशिश करनी है कि इस गुनाह से जान छुड़ाए। और अगर यकीनन अगर इंसान अपनी सिंसियरिटी से उस पर तौबा करता है तो यकीनन तौबा का दरवाज़ा ज़रूर खुला है। सो यू कैन रिपेंट फ्रॉम द क्राइम ऑफ रिबा, बट समटाइम we call it this is our majburi or this is our necessity, but we have to actually evaluate, is it a necessity or not? Because we have we come across different corporate clients. They say, okay, we have to borrow 1 billion rupees. I don't want to go to Islamic. I will borrow from a conventional bank because I want to establish my new factory. Is that a necessity or not? You have to decide yourself. Urdu Zuban mein, maybe what we will do, inshallah, we will have another session for which will be completely in Urdu, because this was a targeted session for global audience as well as local audience. So we did in English, but inshallah, maybe next week or after 2 weeks, we will do a complete Urdu version of it as well, inshallah. Islamic standard books are available. IOFI Shariah standards is available in soft copy from the IOFI website. It is available in English for free. It is available in Arabic for free. And recently in Pakistan, the translation of the Sharia standards was made in Urdu. So you can buy it from the local market. And now I see a few weeks back, this presentation, a soft Urdu PDF version was also available. So you can get the copy from the local market easily. There was a question that why Islamic banks follow KIBOR or benchmark. This is a very common question, and it's a very pertinent question actually. That KIBOR is a benchmark. What is KIBOR? KIBOR is Karachi Interbank Offer Rate. How KIBOR is calculated? KIBOR is calculated by 14 contributing banks who contribute at around 12 at a known time on the Reuters terminal. That what is their feel of the market, what is the profit rate they should charge when they provide financing to the customer. So these 14 banks put their rates on the system. The top 4 and the bottom 4 are excluded. The remaining 6 there's an arithmetic average of these remaining 6 rates are taken, and that number is called KIBOR. So that's the arithmetic number. It is not interest itself. It's a number which is coming out of the banking market, that the banking market is saying that, look, today my desired profit rate for doing financing, either Islamic or un-Islamic, is 10%. You can use that number to do Islamic finance, or you can use that number to fix a price on the sale of mobile phone. You can say, I will sell my mobile phone at 10% profit. So I bought it for 5,000. I will sell it at 5,500 rupees because I want to earn same amount of profit as the conventional banks are trying to earn. And the conventional bank can say, I want to earn interest on it, so I will also earn 10% interest. So KIBOR is used as a benchmark to price a transaction. That benchmark itself, yes, it is coming out of conventional market because conventional market is still 86%, 84%, but that's a number. If you're using that number in a tell us what is the rate of return targeted by the bank. So it's a financial figure which give us the rate of the number of IRR, or the IRR we are targeting to earn in a transaction. IRR does not make a transaction Islamic or un-Islamic. How you do that transaction make it Islamic or un-Islamic. So if you amount, but in a correct manner, doing halal. If you are, for example, let's say 10 years forward, we have these 14 banks converted to Islamic bank. And then again, they are quoting KIBOR, Islamic KIBOR on the state bank, because there was the conventional banks are shrink. We are now leading. And then according to the same formula, the KIBOR comes at 12%. Now this KIBOR is coming out of Islamic banks. But if a conventional bank use this Kyber to provide interest-based loan, that interest-based loan will still remain un-Islamic, because Kyber is a mechanism for pricing. To judge a transaction, it is Islamic or not or un-Islamic, you have to look at the transaction. There was an example quoted from let's a person has died and he has two sons and he has left inheritance of 10 lakh rupees for each person. One said, I will sell alcohol in the market and I will earn 10%. The other will say, I know selling of alcohol is haram, so I will sell fruit juice in the market and I will also earn 10% because I will compete with you. So they are both earning 10%, but that does not mean that both businesses are equal. We have to see the nature of business to decide it is permissible or it is impermissible. Fast Lahore is interested in starting Islamic banking. Yes, we can help any university that want to start Islamic finance or Islamic banking. In Moraba, Islamic Bank increased the profit rate with increase in payment time. It is not riba. No, you see, credit sale is allowed in Islam. Once you, at the time of entering a sale transaction, you can agree on a price. For example, we see even in the spot price, we see different pricing mechanism. For example, if I want to buy a mineral water, I go to the market, I will get it for 20 rupees. But if I go to a 5-star hotel, I will get the same bottle on 100 rupees on cash payment. You can have two different prices for even cash payment. Similarly, you can have two different prices for credit and spot payment. But the principle is that you have to lock the price at the start, at the time of sale transaction. And once the price is locked, for example, I said I will sell you the mobile on 6,000 rupees and you have to pay me after 1 month. And you didn't pay me after 1 month and you pay me after 3 months. Still you will pay the same 6,000 rupees. Once the price is locked, it cannot be changed. It cannot be changed because of delay in payment. But in the time of negotiating a price, because you are actually selling something. So it is allowed to charge a higher price is locked. Now, if you don't pay on time, the price will not change and it will not increase because of delay. All of those people who are sharing their email, I must say that if you have registered with this particular email, then you will get the presentation, inshallah, or the link of the presentation. So don't worry. Car leasing in a conventional and Islamic banks are quite different. In a conventional bank, car financing is done by providing an interest-based loan to buy a car. So I will give, I'm an interest-based bank. If God forbid, then I will give you 10,000 rupees, 1 million rupees as loan, and you will pay me interest, and you will use that money or to buy the car. But in Islamic leasing concept or ijara concept, the bank will buy the car, bank will be the owner of the car, bank will take the risk of ownership of the car, and just like a rent-a-car company, they will give you car on rent to use the car, and you pay the rental for utilization of the car. And if, for example, say you take the car from a Meezan Bank or you take a loan from a conventional bank, it will happen. In case of a conventional financing, the bank will say, the car is not ours. We have given you loan, you have to pay all the amount back. But in case of Islamic ijara transaction, the bank will suffer the loss, because you are just a tenant of the for the car, or the rental customer for as a user of the car. The car was owned by the bank, so the risk of the ownership also goes to the bank. And there are other differences as well. Maybe you can I can also highlight that if you go to the Meezan Bank website, there's a knowledge center, and there's a book called Guide to Islamic Banking, which has a detailed chapter about each mode of Islamic finance. Also, you can go to our SEEF YouTube channel. There are a lot of small short videos on Islamic finance topics explaining these concepts of different modes. So I will encourage those who want to learn more, that you can watch those videos to understand a detail about this. IOP introduced standards introduced by Bahrain, and share of Islamic banking is around 30% in Bahrain, or below 30%. Again, that as I mentioned, that Bahrain and Malaysia, IOP is not a government entity. IOP is a private setup, so it's not owned by the government. So has formed IOP, and they will put by one degree of Amir that every bank will become Islamic. But still, Islamic banking has done a lot in Bahrain. The government has a separate, the state bank has a separate, central bank has a separate. A lot of good things to learn from Bahrain. And yes, there are just challenges, because there are opposition of conventional banking. There are certain people who don't subscribe to Islamic banking, and Bahrain was following a very open model, that they want to attract international investors, even Muslim and non-Muslim investors. So probably they kept the conventional banking alive in their country as well. If someone lend or borrow money on the basis of gold, it is prohibited? No. If you lend gold or you borrow gold, this permits. So if I want money, or I want to borrow, I'm in need of funds, you can say, I give me 100 grams of gold, physical gold. It is allowed. Then after 1 year, I will give you back the 100 gram of physical gold. So this is an intelligent way of hedging against inflation or any depreciation. But again, it's your luck. If the gold prices has crashed to 50%, I will again give you 100 grams of gold back, and it's your luck that what was the price after 1 year. But yes, this transaction is actually quite advisable and permissible, that if you don't trust rupee or dollar, you can use gold as a medium for lending and borrowing without interest. State Bank is working for Islamic Kaibor. Yes, there was a goal in the strategic plan of at the State Bank of Pakistan. The strategic plan that was issued by State Bank of Pakistan, that they have put a deadline of for launching Kaibor. Unfortunately, that deadline has missed. But there are still, this chapter is on, that they need to be a separate Islamic benchmark, and we will welcome. Actually, we that will help us. But the other thing about this Islamic benchmark is that if the size of Islamic banking is still low, it will be difficult to dominate a market which is 84% conventional banking and it is to have a Islamic benchmark which will dominate. So if our size goes, it becomes bigger, then we can have our separate benchmarks as well. In Ijara transaction, the bank gift the product after 5 years as hiba to the customer. Does it make business sense? Yes. In Ijara, asset is owned by the bank. What the bank do, that bank depreciate the asset every month. So after normally 5 years, the depreciated values is almost zero, or say 1,000 rupees. So for us, we have already taken the expense, and we have earned what we want to earn as a bank. So now we can even gift to our customer, or we can sell this asset to the customer at token price, because we have already the asset is already depreciated to zero in our books. Why Islamic banking are charging same pricing in different financing product to the users? We are also competing in the same market. When the depositor come to Islamic bank, they ask that they want to get good market return. They want halal return, but they want pay most of being Islamic. He actually wants a cheaper finance from Islamic bank. So this is like a market. This is market dynamic. If you are operating in the market, you have to follow the market pricing and market equilibrium. And yes, we try to be fair. Islamic bank should try to be fair on the pricing side, on the asset side as well as on the deposit side. But you can't ignore the market trend. For example, now it is expected today that State Bank will be lowering the discount rate. But you can say if the State Bank is lowering to 1% rate today, then obviously Islamic banking financing customer will expect that we will lower our financing rates because the market trend is going down. Similarly, when the market trend goes up, the pricing goes up. So because we are not isolated from the market, we are part of the market. Are there any Islamic bank in those 14 banks? You see, there are 5 full-fledged Islamic banks and there are 17 banks. No, and for quoting of Khyber, currently there is no Islamic bank currently. But maybe inshallah, will few years time we will have Islamic banks as well. What is compliance Islamic SOP for companies in Pakistan? If you are referring to the question about the tax rebate, I've mentioned that FBR will give tax rebate of 2% if you comply with Islamic law, Islamic principles in financing. So it means that if your total financing relationship with the banking sector has to be Sharia compliant, and your total deposit in bank if you want this tax rebate. Why Muslim countries try to design their own benchmark? You see, actually, this is a debate among scholars that should we have our own benchmark? And yes, there is good about having our own benchmark, that then we are not influenced by the conventional banking pricing, but we will be dictating pricing to the conventional banks. But again, it depends on size. There were efforts by some international banks, and IIBR was launched on Reuters terminal 3 to 4 years back, which was contributed by 16 Islamic banks worldwide. And that is an alternative to LIBOR-based financing. So now there is a sort of LIBOR to provide financing to its customers. Again, the desire is that ideally we should not be dependent on conventional banking, and we should be independent of them. So that's why separate benchmark is desired by the scholars. But they also say that using conventional benchmark does not make a transaction impermissible, but it is better if we have our own benchmark. The question is Khyber के हिसाब से the question is probably, if I understand correctly, that the return to the deposit holders is always on the lower side of Khyber. It is lesser than Khyber. So it will probably happen because, you know, if we are financing a transaction, if we are, say Khyber is 10%, Islamic bank is doing a transaction of, say, car financing on 10%. So if he's earning 10%, then to the Mudarba deposit holders, he has to share the profit. So normally the profit sharing ratio is 50-50%. So if they are earning 10%, they will keep 5, and they will share 5%, 5 to the customer. So because the bank is sharing the profit at gross profit level, no salary is charged to the deposit pool, no branch expansion cost, marketing cost is charged to the deposit pool. So uh, the total income of which is earned from the financing transaction from a deposit pool, it is shared on two levels. One is the profit sharing ratio, which is agreed between the client and the bank, which is normally 50-50. So whatever you earn, you give 50% to your customer, and 50% you keep it for your own expense. And out of that 50 that bank keep, it do all the expense of salary, bonus, rental, administrative expense, overheads, and then whatever remain at the end become the net income. Then after paying 40% tax out of that, the remaining amount goes to the shareholder for distribution. There's a question, probably will require more time, and it will not be, we can go out of the scope. Maybe we can have some other session on running musharaka. But running musharaka is an important transaction in a sense that ideally scholars have always promoted that Islamic bank should do musharaka transactions. And alhamdulillah, in Pakistan, Pakistan has took lead of introducing musharaka transaction in financing, and where profit and loss sharing based modes are discussed. And alhamdulillah, it's a very good transaction. And in Pakistan now, the share of running musharaka is more than 20%, and it has left murabaha behind. Why people in Pakistan are reluctant to deal with Islamic banks? I think this is not true. That people are Islamic banks are witnessing a very strong growth, very strong demand from the people. There were some reservation of few ulama in previously, but most of them has now their own account in Islamic banks. So because this is a new area, everyone is now in process of doing research. Some of the scholars have some misconceptions. When they further study, they understand that the initial understanding was not true. So many of the scholars who were initially opposing, they are now bank account holders of Islamic banks. So things have gradually improved. Even today, the challenge is that sometimes Islamic banks have to stop taking deposit because they don't have the avenues to invest those deposits. Late payment. Yeah, this is a good question. That banks, if a customer don't pay on time, then there is a late payment being charged to the. There's a charity charge to the client. What is the rationale of this charity? You see, the basic principle is that if you don't pay on time, then that amount become a debt. Islamic banks, as per Islamic law, they cannot charge anything extra from the client and take that extra into their income. So there is no late penalty can be charged. However, the ulama and the Shariah scholars has provided one way out to safeguard Islamic banks, and it is based on the fatwa of Imam Malik and the Maliki school. And IOFI, the Sharia board, has adopted that the ruling that you can ask a customer who is intentionally delaying a payment to the Islamic bank, that if he intentionally delay without a justified reason, he will pay a certain amount as sadaqah. So he also feels the pain of breaking his promise of paying on time. So this is a deterrent, and this sadaqah and this charity is not going to the income of the bank, it goes to the charity account, then it is donated to a charity. Now we have limited time. What I will do, I will just take questions which is related to the concept of Islamic banking. Maybe what we will do based on the question, that we can continue this series maybe after Eid, and we can do a session on the products. Today we discussed the concept part, but then we can do some session on the products where you can join and we can answer your questions related to the products. But I'm also mentioning that you can go to our YouTube channel and you can discuss, you can listen to the product-wise lectures by the scholars and the experts. And you can also go to the Knowledge Center at Meezan Bank website, where you can get this book called Guide to Islamic Banking, where each product is covered in a separate chapter. that will help you to understand the products. Is there, the question is that is there any our consumer of Islamic banking is better secure in phase of COVID in case of default? You see, depends. If the customer is in a genuine distress and genuine need, and he has a good credit history, then Islamic Bank will help the customer to facilitate and to to him to recover. There is no desire of a Islamic Bank to declare a customer a defaulter and then sell his property. It's not a desire. But if the customer, we feel, a bank feel that he's intentionally, he has the money, but he's trying to defeat the system and trying to create a loss to our deposit holder, then Islamic banks must take appropriate action to handle that scenario. Is there any separate arrangement for Islamic law to handle NPLs? I mentioned earlier that in case of not paying on time, you can't charge anything extra. But then you look at the case. If the case is of genuine problematic, if a customer is in genuine problem, he's a good customer, we try to facilitate him by grace period, by rescheduling the transaction, by helping him with another transaction. That is what also Islamic banks are doing due to COVID issue. But if the customer is a willful defaulter, then we also have the right to take back our asset, or to go to the court and do a case against that client to recover the amount, so we can save our deposit holders. It is possible that Mudarba Musharaka, Alhamdulillah, Mudarba Musharaka has increased over time in Pakistan. It's now already more than 20%. In case of Meezan, it's already 30%, and it is already highest in the world probably. So we are leading the world. Pakistan is leading the world in promoting Musharaka Mudarba based transactions. My question was, subsidy taken from SEVP on Prime Minister's youth loan is Islamic? In the Prime Minister Youth Loan Scheme, the previous government has launched a scheme that has two versions. There was an Islamic version and there was an un-Islamic version. So for the Islamic version, the subsidy also was which was given to the bank was according to the Shariah principles. So for the un-Islamic version, it was just interest coming to the bank. So there are two streams to it. And we are now hoping that this time the Naujawan scheme is also now we are requesting the government to offer this in Islamic mode as well. So the youth of Pakistan will get an Islamic financing option for starting their businesses. Musharaka is lesser. No, Musharaka is not lesser in Pakistan. It is actually higher. Probably it is the highest in the world. If you see combined diminishing Musharaka and Musharaka in Pakistan, we are already 50%, and probably this is the optimal rate. In any business, you can't just do away with trade. Trade is there, rental will be there, and partnership will be there. So I think in Pakistan the development are quite healthy, but it will further improve as the law will improve, because there are certain limitations of law. We Islamic banks have demanded that we want to open our companies, we want to open our showrooms, we want to open our warehouses, and we have demanded the government to change the law so we can own these companies and assets and increase the real activity and the magnitude of real business. And as a result, we will share our customers with with more profits. Obviously, we have to take more risk for that. So we are working with the government to change the law so Islamic Bank can work as an investment and holding company in Pakistan. Why Islamic banking profit rates are lower on as compared to conventional bank rates? You see, there are two aspects. One is charging Kyber to the customer, or Kyber-based pricing to the customer. Then the other aspect is investing the surplus liquidity in the market. Currently, you cannot invest all of the money that you have taken from the deposit holder in financing businesses. There's a restriction from State Bank because of the risk management. You have to put certain amount in the financing business, and certain amount you have to do keep it surplus, or you have to manage your liquidity in a Sharia compliant manner. Currently, the liquidity management framework and the tools that are available are negatively yielding. For example, uh, last month, the sukuk that has taken place, uh, it was a 5-year sukuk by government of Pakistan for 76 billion rupees. The return of the sukuk was 1.25% minus 6-month T-bill rate. So if the government is paying to a conventional bank for 6 months on a T-bill 10%, they have said that because you are an Islamic bank, you will get 1.25% less than a 6-month rate for a 5-year risk. So currently the market, once the instruments, liquidity management instruments are not there, and the yield is negative on. So as a result, our total income is lower as compared to the conventional. And there is, for example, for conventional bank, there's a ceiling facility at State Bank. Whatever money they get, they can give overnight to State Bank, and they can earn at least higher 5.5% higher than the minimum deposit rate. So they don't need to worry about going to invest this money in businesses or going to invest in money in the sukuk. They can just put the money to State Bank, and they will get say at least 0.5% higher spread, and they can pay the lower spread. But there is no such facility available to Islamic banks. So this is why we are saying that the level playing field is still absent for Islamic banks, and we hope that this field will come. The government will take the right measures. So we not only our desire is there, but the market challenges and the government desire to have negative yield for Islamic banks or lower rate for Islamic banks sometimes force Islamic banks that they are not able to earn that much amount, and as a result they are not able to pay that much return to the customer. But we are still the banks are still trying and working and requesting the government to move on. Now, still the questions are a lot. I appreciate the interest of all the participants, but because of the limitation of time, we have to stop here. And inshallah, we hope to have these type of sessions again, and we hope that you will you have benefited from this session. And inshallah, IBA CEIF will continue with support of industry partners like Meezan Bank to have these type of sessions. Again, I will request you can go to our YouTube channel, you can listen to our videos, you can go to our CEIF website. There are a lot of reports there on Islamic finance. You can go to Meezan Bank Knowledge Center. You can see a lot good reading material that will answer these queries. And inshallah, we hope that in future we will have similar sessions where we can answer your more queries. And inshallah we are trying to have this continue this series after Ramadan, where we will cover topic wise or product wise or maybe more detailed sessions where inshallah you can learn more and interact more and inshallah benefit more. So thank you very much everyone. Jazakallah khair for joining us. And so with this dua I will end that may Allah save us from riba, may Allah save us from interest and sood. And in this month, of holy month of Ramadan, we pray for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that that our financial system is converted to Islamic, and also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from this COVID disease and keep us all safe. Jazakallah khair. Thank you very much, and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.